People have been asking why I made the decision to donate 90% of the profits from my game Goblins for Good to charity. Some have understandably been a little skeptical. I want to start off by saying I don't expect the fact that profits are being donated to charity to be the reason anyone buys the game. Buy the game if you think it will be fun for you to play and worth the price for you personally because it's your kind of game. It doesn't make sense for you to buy the game just to support charity. You could do that just by donating to them directly. The only reason this makes sense is if it's a game you actually want to play. But for context on why I made this decision, I'll briefly go into my history making games. I started by making mods for games like Warcraft 3 and then StarCraft 2, culminating in a second place finish in one of Blizzard's modding contests, eventually getting my mod adapted into the official StarCraft 2 co-op mission pool. Another company saw that and hired me to make mobile games. Unfortunately, many mobile game companies take dark design patterns as an aspirational rulebook instead of a warning. They find ways to use manipulative psychology or exploit gambling addictions to squeeze as much money out of players as they can. They use dehumanizing terms for players like whales and throw around terms like LTV and ARPDAU as they frame players as a resource to maximally exploit and profit off of. Not to mention how many of these companies treat their employees badly too. One of my coworkers had a mental breakdown because of the stress and pressure of working 80-hour weeks packed with unpaid overtime. I was told I couldn't encourage other employees to take care of themselves so the same thing wouldn't happen to them because, according to my boss, if someone had a mental breakdown because of their management, it was the employee's fault for being unable to handle this fast-paced environment. So in this environment, I was looking around at the unethical way these games were made and monetized, and wondering to myself what the opposite of that would look like. What would it look like for a game to be a force for good in the world instead? This was the soil that the creative idea for Goblins for Good sprouted in. The name of the game, the gameplay, and the concept of pledging your level victories to a charity came across to me as one idea, which evolved over the years into Goblins for Good. I got burned out and quit making games for years because of that job. But years later, when I thought about getting back into game development and making a game by myself, I knew I wanted to start with a small game, but I wasn't motivated or excited by the idea of most small games. Eventually, I came back to Goblins for Good and the idea of donating profits to charity because it was a way to make a small game that I was still motivated and excited to work on. Something about the play on words of the game title and the concept of donating to charity just tickled my brain and made me creatively energized. So I decided on 5 charities. Each time you beat a level in-game, you can pick the charity that you want the money you spent buying Goblins for Good to go to support. Then I'll take 90% of the game's profit and divide it among those charities according to what percentage of players voted for each one. Of course, each of the charities the money is being donated to are personally meaningful to me. First, I chose the Alzheimer's Foundation of America because both of my grandfathers died of Alzheimer's. We have no idea when or even if effective treatments will ever be found. But in the meantime, both patients suffering from the disease and those caring for them need all of the help they can get. It's heartbreaking to watch someone lose their mind and forget the people they love. My grandfather would often think he was alone and call out for someone he loved who wasn't alive anymore because he didn't want to be alone as he lost his grip on reality. But every now and then he'd have flashes of awareness of how much pain he was causing his loved ones and how much of a burden he felt like it was to care for him. And yeah, there's a supposedly a strong genetic component to Alzheimer's, so it's probably not the last time it will have an impact on my family's lives either. The second charity, Parkinson's Foundation, is in honor of both my uncle and a friend who are both suffering from Parkinson's. If Alzheimer's is losing control of your mind, Parkinson's is losing control of your body. Very literally, you start to spasm and tremor uncontrollably, which can be equally horrifying in its own way. It's especially hard for men who are used to being dependable providers who suddenly find themselves dependent on others for even the basic of things, getting around, going to the bathroom, in extreme cases requiring a wheelchair. Although there are more effective treatments for Parkinson's, they're imperfect. my heart always breaks a bit when I see someone in public who I don't know with the telltale tremor of Parkinson's in their hands, because I know that later when they're home, when they're away from the public eye and their meds are wearing off, the struggle is much, much worse than it appears when they're at their peak. For the third charity, I chose the Samaria Foundation because I know 2 people suffering from NMOSD, a rare autoimmune disease that attacks the central nervous system, including the spinal cord, and can lead to permanent vision loss, paralysis, severe disability, etc. One was a girl who went to a coma because of it at a fairly young age and is suffering for the rest of her life. The other is a woman who was torn away from her role as a wife and a mother and essentially bedridden because of it. In both cases, part of what makes it so heartbreaking is that this disease is much, much more rare than Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. So it's that much harder to get a diagnosis or treatment, and you can feel so alone when suffering from any kind of really rare disease like this. The fourth charity is the Global Lyme Alliance. Here in New York, ticks and tick-borne diseases have skyrocketed. It was basically unheard of when I was younger, and now it's increased 450% in just 4 years between 2020 and 2024. I know countless friends and family who have gotten Lyme's. If you're lucky and catch it really early and get a course of antibiotics, it might be fairly mild for you. You're just weak and under the weather for a few weeks. But if you don't catch it immediately, testing for it can sometimes have as high as a 50% false negative rate. So it could be 50-50 chances as to whether it even gets caught and diagnosed. Meanwhile, the symptoms can vary wildly, making it hard for doctors to diagnose accurately based on symptoms alone. But if untreated, the symptoms can get very severe: heart troubles, headaches, brain inflammation, nerve damage, arthritis, and profound debilitating fatigue and severe cognitive impairment. Not to mention that the side effects of taking antibiotics can have long-term adverse effects, and sometimes symptoms from Lyme's persist for the rest of your life even after treatment. For me personally, I got such debilitating brain fog that sometimes it made it hard to even remember how to walk. And I had a lot of nerve pain and damage, and for a long time was never diagnosed, and today I'm still affected by the repercussions of taking antibiotics for it. The final, fifth charity is Compassion in World Farming. Because my gamertag or brand name is Holy Cow Crates, I wanted to choose a cow-related one. Not only that, but I've lived in the country and near farms always, and have had friends and family raising animals. Some have briefly worked at factory farms, and they are horrified the way the animals are treated there. I think we should all be able to agree that so long as animals are being raised for consumption, it would be better for them to be treated with love and compassion as long as they are alive. You may feel this cause does not go far enough, and I understand, in which case you can vote for one of the other charities. But as someone who is not a vegetarian but still loves animals, as a lot of people do, I think this is a worthy cause to support. So that is why each charity is meaningful to me. I tried to research charities that were actually impactful and effective. There were quite a few that originally were on my list, but after looking into them, I just wasn't sure they would actually use money well. Now, for the people who are still skeptical, once the game is released and Valve pays me for the sales of the game, I'm going to make a news post on the Steam page showing how much money Goblins for Good made and exactly how much is going to each of the charities based on player votes. Then I will include receipts showing proof that that amount of money was donated to each charity. There isn't much more I can do beforehand to prove that I'm genuine, so feel free to remain skeptical until that happens. But for the people who are already on board with this idea and want to do more to support these causes, consider encouraging your favorite content creators, YouTubers, Twitch streamers, TikTokers, etc. to make a video or stream about Goblins for Good. No pressure, but they could even pass it forward by donating the profits from their stream or video to a charity as well. It could be one of the 5 supported by this game, or it could be one that's personally meaningful to them, or they could let chat choose one. I just think that would be a fun way to help this have even more of an impact. As for me, obviously, since 90% of the profits is going to charity, I have very little to gain from the success of this game personally. It wasn't a very financially wise choice, but making games solo never is. I just hope I can keep making games going forward. There are so many corporately created games. My hope is that some of you will enjoy my personal style and creativity and will follow me to my next project. But I'm not really counting on that. I got started modding and made all sorts of games for free. I did it and still do because I love making games, and I also love seeing people play my games and have fun and enjoy them. So even if you don't care about supporting these charities or supporting me in my journey of making games, I just hope that you enjoy the game for what it is and have a fun time playing the game. And if you don't, leave a review and let me know, and I'll do my best to fix that in future updates. This has been Justin, the sole developer of Goblins for Good, and thank you for watching.